Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everyone, it's Debbie, your host of the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. And today my guest is a fellow health coach and biohacker and part of the Keon coaching program I did with Ben Greenfield. Her name is Angela Foster. She is one smart cookie. Angela is a nutritional therapist and health performance coach in the UK. She's a former partner in a large law firm who left the world of corporate law after suffering, burnout and recovery, as many of us have experienced as myself. But Angela started focusing on her health after recovering from serious illness in 2014. So we all have our own stories of what brought us to becoming health coaches to help others feel their best and live their best life and avoid going through what we have gone through. But Angela's got a lot on her plate. She's a mother of 3 young children. She's on a mission to inspire and educate women how to stay healthy and energized while meeting the demands of combining a successful career with a vibrant and healthy family life. She's also a regular speaker to large corporations, probably pre-COVID time, and helping them optimize their health and wellness of their employees. She is the host of the High Performance Health podcast, a top-rated podcast in alternative health. The podcast is highly engaged listenership for people who are looking for tips and hacks, biohacks, to optimize their health and performance in life, as well as to seek out products that they discuss on the show. So we're just going to talk shop, have a nice conversation today. Ideally, it would be in person. Someday we'll all be able to connect at conferences and unite again. But right now we're talking via Zoom, as everyone else does, and enjoying a nice cup of tea while we chat. So bring on Angela and let's learn something new today. Let me know your questions and comments. If you go to debbiepotts.net, you can send me a message and let me know what you think of the podcast, what questions and comments you have, and even what future topics you want me to dive into, as well as guests to bring on the show. So hopefully you like what you're listening to and you're learning something new each week, and we can all work on improving our ability to burn fat, how to optimize our health from the inside out, and how to improve the aging process. I want you to be fit and healthy from the inside out, not just on the outside looking fit. So let's make sure we're really optimizing our health from all areas in life with lifestyle habits, nutrition, as well as identifying those hidden internal sneaky stressors that we don't know about unless we do lab testing. Okay, let's bring on Angela. Hey, it's Debbie, and I'm happy to say I have a fellow friend from Keon coaching program from the UK, Angela Foster, and we are going to dive into some kind of biohacking techniques to help you improve your ability to burn fat, improve performance, and my favorite right now, the aging process, longevity. So thanks for coming on my show today and chat about genetics and how we can really improve the aging process.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Debbie.
So let's kind of dive into your story and talk about what you do. You have High Performance Health podcast and coaching program. Kind of how did you get here and what's your kind of your why?
Yeah, so my big why is basically to help women primarily optimize their hormones and their stress and their metabolism and avoid burnout. And that was really prompted by my own story. I used to be a corporate lawyer practicing for many years, and then I got seconded to an investment bank where I worked even longer hours, and then eventually became a partner in a law firm. And the hours were crazy busy. And I I kept going in my 20s. I think you kind of feel like you're invincible. And then, and you can kind of do anything, right? And then I had my kids. I had 3 children within the space of 4.5 years, which was pretty close together. And that entailed 3 cesarean sections. And so it was a big recovery. And I suffered really badly with postpartum, which I think, to be honest, was as a result of the burnout that had been building as, life as a lawyer. So it all kind of culminated in me eventually just kind of having such suicidal thoughts and really, really struggling with my mental health, until I then was rushed into hospital with what was suspected lung cancer, and turned out actually to be double pneumonia, and was admitted in the middle of the day when my kids were at school. Couldn't say goodbye to them. And that just turned my life around, because I'm grateful every day that passes for that day that gave me a new look at life, and just the ability to really understand my body and get my mental, my physical, and actually also my spiritual health, which I hadn't really looked at previously, back on track. And then I went on to completely requalify, left law totally, and requalified in holistic health coaching and nutritional therapy, and then began working with clients. And that's then gone on to develop as a wider mission, really, to just help other women avoid the same pitfalls that I've been in.
Mm-hmm. So similar to me, right? Everyone has their story that's a practitioner, their why, and then we're all getting trained and, learning as much as we can with the purpose, newfound purpose and a passion to help other people that are similar to us to avoid going through what happened to us, and just that we couldn't find the right help. And now we're trying to be that person. It's so true. It kind of gives you that more, motivation to follow that mission, because we get it. You experience that trauma, that stress, and that buildup, and overcame it, and how you can help other people prevent going through the road that you did, that journey.
Yeah, very much so. And it's hugely rewarding as well, as you say, and just helping people kind of before they get to that point, and really help them to become the people that they really want to be and the best version of themselves. And I don't think you can do that actually without really optimizing your mind, body, and spirit. So yeah.
Which probably led us all to connect on Keon with Ben Greenfield coaching program, because Ben has kind of, morphed himself into that mind, body, spirit over the years of hammering himself into this new version of Ben. It's kind of what we all have evolved to, is working on the mind, body, and spirit. That, for me as a trainer for so many years, you can't just train people and expect them to be healthy. There's so much more to it, being fit and healthy on the inside and out. And it sounds like, you found some great ways to coach people to optimize their health and improve the aging process. And as you say, as I say, is live their best life and feel your best self and, perform your best in daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. It was really interesting, because when I started this journey, I initially was like, well, there must be a way of combining high performance and optimal health, because they felt like they didn't coexist. It was almost as if, well, you can work really, really hard, or you can be really, really healthy. And I'd always been into the fitness side of things and just eating healthy. But I think I'd really overlooked the strain and stresses that I was putting on my body and my hormones, and everything else that was going on. And then I realized that actually, if you really want to succeed long term and have what I call longevity in both business and in life, then you really have to optimize your health. Otherwise, it just isn't sustainable.
Yeah, and that's so true. And it's figuring out what are the ingredients to being healthy, and what does that mean to you? It's not just exercising, as we said, and what to eat, but there's so much more going on. So how do you help people perform their best?
So I use a model that I've developed called SHIFT. How do you shift into optimal health? And that breaks down into 5 key areas. So the first is sleep, because I believe that sleep is really the true foundation of optimized health. And it also just makes everything easier. So, if you're not sleeping well, it's so much harder to do the rest of what follows in my SHIFT program. Also, sleep is hugely protective of our health, as you know, Debbie. It's it helps to protect us against things like Alzheimer's. The lymphatic system is very intensive at night in terms of clearing away any plaque that's building up in the brain. We get a nice healthy dose of growth hormone, which after the age of 40 isn't really released unless we're in deep sleep. because we're not like kids that are growing, and that helps renew the lining of our gut and our skin and keeps us looking young and healthy and also feeling at our best. And it reduces cortisol, it reduces oxidative stress, and we perform better. So sleep is really the foundation of what I teach and where I start. And then when I know that someone's sleeping well, we bring in the next pillar, which is H, which is the habits and the hacks. So without the right habits and framework in place, it's really kind of difficult to do the work. And then I look at the hacks of like, well, how can we get there fastest? So, what biohacks can we incorporate? What life hacks, productivity hacks, just to make the whole thing easier? Because like most people, everyone at the moment is really, really busy. And so it's got to be easy. Otherwise, people aren't going to do it. And then we move to insights. So I start to look at their lab work, depending on what their questionnaires show me that we need to kind of focus on, and I'll do some investigation, but I'll also look at kind of their wearable devices and track their aura or their Whoop data, just to gain some insights about their lifestyle alongside things like food journals and sleep journals. And then I teach them the last two pillars, which is how to fuel your body and how to fuel your body and mind, and also how to train your body and mind. And I break down the fuel into 4 components. So I use the analogy flow, which is food, light, oxygen, and water, so that they understand the right breathing techniques, how to kind of, air their homes correctly, the right plants and things to use in terms of the oxygen, how to hydrate correctly, and then the right food in terms of nutrition. And that's where I really bring in the genetics and nutrigenomics aspect, alongside light, which I think is a very underrated source of energy for people's mitochondria, which we can always talk about in a moment. And then the last pillar really is training both their body and the mind, because that was the bit I neglected. I'd always trained my body and never really focused on my mind.
That's great. Yeah, so needed. And I think I've really found that sleep too is where to start with people, is that, the nutrition exercise is always what people have done in the past, but I'm finding more and more that people have such disrupted sleep cycles, and your sleep, as you said, is what I keep finding with clients, that it impacts your decisions you make, how you eat, and your energy to exercise. And I know my workout and then using my Oura ring, it's great information you can gain and collect and use those for additional clues to how to coach someone and teach them how to self-care for themselves to be, fit and healthy. So it's just always great to hear the importance of sleep, because I think it's underrated. So many people don't even think of it, especially the past year with the pandemic. People are just staying up late at night and really doing nothing productive. They're just staying up watching TV or watching shows and not really, there's no reason for it. So it's just how to get people to go to bed early and create a sleep hygiene routine. What are some things you would suggest for people to how to get started on making sleep a priority, and how to be motivated to realize sleep is so essential to health?
Yeah. And I think, as you say, it's the easiest thing to let go of, isn't it? And it's certainly something I let go of as a lawyer, because if you're trying to get more things done, then the first thing you skimp on is sleep. It's like, well, I'll just lengthen my days and shorten my nights. But actually, we're much less productive. And when they've done research on physicians, for example, they make more errors. If they're underslept, they take longer to perform tasks. So yeah, it's definitely not something we want to be doing. I think the biggest thing first is for people to start getting their circadian rhythm in alignment. And there are 2 ways of doing that, through food and light as the kind of most impactful cues. So I encourage them to start with a very simple overnight 12-hour fast as a bare minimum, to make sure that they are getting, a decent time without food and helping their body perform that all-important autophagy. And then using light as a cue. So actually your sleep tonight begins with the way that you behave this morning. So if you can get outside and get exposure to natural blue light from the sun as early as possible, that's actually going to set you up in terms of the right cortisol and melatonin rhythm to ensure that you get a good night's sleep tonight. And then in the end of the day, just starting to reduce that blue light exposure. So if you are having to work in the evenings, then actually wearing some blue light blocking glasses, making sure you've got yours there, making sure you've got the right settings on your computer, and trying to power down at least 1 hour before bed, and sort of bookend your day where you get everything out of your head onto a piece of paper and or a journal, wherever you put it, just so that you can really start to relax and not keep everything in the brain. I think all these people underestimate the impact that these open loops have and how they disrupt their sleep. And if you think of a web browser, if you've got all these tabs open, your computer performs more slowly, and our brains are not really any different. So I like people to really bookend their day and get some wind down time before bed.
I think, with the technology the past few years, it's gotten to be a little out of control how much people are, especially working at home the past year, is people don't set boundaries, and they just, allow their work life to be merged into one, that they're emailing and texting. And now there's, Voxer and all these different devices that people are always on and working all the time. They don't ever shut off their brain and just let non-work thoughts happen at nighttime. And I think you get that monkey mind because we're so distracted all the time and multitasking instead of just, doing one thing at a time through the day is a big part. But then, when you shut off your phone, I put it in airplane mode, and I'm not looking at texts and messages after, 6:30 or 7 p.m. at the latest. And I think it's creating that routine. You said bookends, morning as well. Don't wake up when you're in bed and turn on your phone and read your emails right away. I learned that from running my own business, my fitness studio. I would go to bed. If I read something stressful, it would completely mess my sleep up, and I'd be worrying all night. I had the worst sleep. So I'm like, okay, no looking at email before bed. And also, if you're looking at email in the morning and it's a bad email, it's going to start your day on the wrong foot. So I think setting those boundaries of when you're available and then when you're responding or reading and responding to messages.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You make some really good points there. I think having the right morning routine is really critical to your overall performance and to a healthy mind. And also just moving your body in the morning can really help. One of the questions I often get asked is, should I exercise first thing in the morning? Some people feel like they're motivated to do that first thing and take advantage of that cortisol spike that we see. But I think in most cases, in actual fact, if you can postpone it to a bit later and just do something gentle in the morning, because cortisol itself is quite catabolic, then you'll see better results. But, it's things like that I think we as, coaches and advisors can really help clients with, because it's got to fit around their routine, but there are things they can do to moderate some of those impacts if the morning is the only time they have to exercise.
Yeah, I know I've enjoyed this new schedule the past year, and working from home is my new job. That, going outside and walking, I would never, ever do that before, because I'd be off at 5 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, going to work out and going to my studio, whatever I was doing that day. And it's amazing gift that I've had, being able to just wake up and go for, a little bit of a walk, even if it's just a short walk. But I think it's, some new habits we can create. And I've always said since last year, breakfast, lunch, dinner means move time. And I think morning time doesn't mean get up and you have to eat, but think of that, create that new habit of get up and move and get outside, even if it's down your driveway and back, or, getting that sunrise time is so good, as well as going at nighttime, instead of thinking it's meal time, move time. And I find so many people just don't get outside, and that helps their sleep so much.
It does help their sleep so much. I agree. And I think even if it's raining, just get outside, get some time, even just get that light into the eye. It makes such a big difference, and it really helps the pineal gland to produce melatonin that night. And I think also people underestimate the impact that light has on our cells.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 bioactive forms of light in humans, and these give us energy. And there's good reason why when we're in sunnier climates or we've gone on vacation, we actually feel like so much more energized and healthy, and we need less sleep in summer. And that's really down to light. So I think it's important, that people do get that exposure, while obviously being mindful of the fact that if you have too much UV light, then that can age you. We were talking about longevity. It can, break down collagen in the skin, put you at greater risk of things like skin cancer. And things like that, but also you do need a moderate amount to produce enough vitamin D. So I think it's all like anything in life, isn't it? It's about getting the balance right.
The Goldilocks effect, right? I keep saying that all the last few years, and this year it's like everything is, more is not better, less is sometimes more, and then find that right amount that doesn't cause deficiencies or overload and imbalances. That finding right is so individual. But talk about light and mitochondria, because I love talking about mitochondria and really focusing on how to get healthy and improve performance in life and sports, I think it's a lot to do with improving the function of our mitochondria as well, of course, for our longevity process. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So I think that that's, obviously getting the sun exposure is completely free. That just means you don't have to pay for it. You can go outside. It is difficult, going outside and getting the full spectrum from the sun. Obviously, we have more blue light during the middle of the day. And then at sunrise and sunset, we benefit from the red and near infrared. But I think that, the far infrared is the heat that you feel from the sun. That is also equally important. And so getting those rays on your skin. So it's really about exposing skin. Even when it's cold, if you can put on a body warmer and still kind of expose your arms, that is probably the best thing. And then if you want to biohack it, then obviously there are some devices that you can buy. You can have red light therapy, which makes the treatment time really short, because you can get a really good treatment within sort of 7 to 8 minutes, and that will give you the near infrared and also the red light, which are very powerful on the mitochondria. And if you have something like an infrared sauna as well, then you can benefit from that far infrared. So you're getting all of the spectrums. But I think that some people can get, a bit too carried away insofar as they think, well, that's fine. I'm using my sauna and I'm using my red light, and now I don't need to go outside. We still need to go outside. There's just amazing benefits from walking in nature. And as we've already said, getting the blue light from the sun, making sure you're getting enough vitamin D, but also just the clean air and doing some breathing, and the overall movement is so key. And if you can do it barefoot and benefit from the Earth's negative electrons, then even better.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of moving from Seattle to North San Diego the past 6 months. Is just like, it is the mood, being outside. I keep being told how happy I look and sound. And it's like, wow, I didn't know I was unhappy for one, but now I realize how much that I always thrive in more the outdoors and getting the sunshine and being able to wear bare feet and walk on the earth and walk on the sand and watch the sunrise.
So you moved about 6 months ago, did you?
Yeah, in June. Thanks to COVID.
How nice.
Yeah. So now I'm able to be we call it the quality of life move, #QOL. It is just so we can have improved quality of life and be outside in the winter months. Then we wouldn't do as much in Seattle. We go to the gym and ride the bike on the trainer. Now we can be outside and as much as we want. So it's nice.
Yeah, really nice. I noticed that in the UK, we had obviously the spring equinox at the weekend. And so everybody's mood has just changed because the sun's come out and people feel it's spring and you can see the daffodils and it's like, wow, it's amazing. Things are changing. But
yeah, don't you feel that energy goes up with everyone, right? Don't you feel that energy out on the weekend?
I really noticed that energy go up. And I think, it was this time last year, actually, because it's my daughter's birthday at the weekend. And it was a few days before her birthday that they locked down the schools a year ago. And a year ago, we didn't benefit from that lovely energy in a way of spring, because I don't know about you, but so many people I was speaking to when the pandemic first struck were feeling this just a global energetic shift across the planet. There were people dying. It was a scary time. There was anxiety. And it just felt like there was this energetic shift. Whereas now, this year, I feel people are more upbeat. We have a vaccine, which people have been readily taking up, which hopefully is going to open things up. And, we'll start to maybe return. I just feel that, I'm not somebody who is really pro vaccines at all, but I think that the cost that we've had to bear in terms of the lack of social contact and that human connection has been so damaging to so many people that I really feel that has to be a priority right now and get people coming back together, because we're social beings.
Yeah, especially in the UK. The UK seems like they've really been locked down and you can't see anybody. Sad.
We've had a really severe 3-month lockdown and it's super strict. And actually today on the news, what they're saying is that now there's a third wave in the continent and we can expect that to wash over our shores. So who knows what's going to happen, but it's one of those scenarios. I feel like the children have made the biggest sacrifices because they weren't at risk. And my kids, not my youngest, but my 2 boys are 12 and 13. They have to have COVID tests twice a week, down the throat, up the nose. It's uncomfortable, it makes their eyes water, they gag, and they still have to wear a mask in the classrooms and learning. And you just feel, and they, all their sport was stopped for 3 months. You just feel, I really feel for them, actually. I think they've made the biggest sacrifices for the rest of us.
Yeah. I know it's hard. So I know we're supposed to, as I told you, go to Europe in September. So like, okay, keep having this, the new stuff, because we just don't know what's going to happen. But I know I'm not a big fan of vaccine, but now I'm like, just everyone get vaccinated so we can just,
I love it, just so I can get back
so we can get back to life and be able to do things. Because I feel like we're not able to do anything until vaccine. But anyway, so mitochondria health, what are the things that we can do in, biohacking world or in nutrients and habits that we can improve? Because it's all about the aging process, I hope, for people, not just about athletic performance, but I keep saying, be the best version of yourself and be the best me in the second half of my life, how we can improve that.
That's so good. Such important points. I think that food plays such a massive part. And I think that making sure that you are eating the cleanest food, and by that, I don't mean clean as in a fad diet, I'm going to eat clean. I mean, eating healthy, nutritious, nutrient dense food that is not exposed to unnecessary amounts of pesticides, that hasn't been interfered with, if you like. I think people are still eating so many pro-inflammatory fats, and these damage your cell membranes. They actually become part of your cell membranes, and they damage your mitochondria, and they cause systemic inflammation across the body. And that's when we start to see things like, conditions that doctors can't seem to manage, like fibromyalgia, polymyalgia, chronic fatigue. It's so difficult, even just episodes with people of brain fog and things like that. And I think to take a look, first of all, and actually invest in eating the best quality food that you personally can buy is one of the best places that you can start. And then making sure that you're not eating all the time. I know, like among the athlete community in particular, it was always the perception that if you eat lots and you eat often, you're going to raise your metabolic rate, and that's going to be really good for you. And I think we understand now that actually having periods of, it's not just about how long you fast, because you can do this multiple ways. So if you want to enhance autophagy, you can have a longer fasting period. And even things like the 16-8 can be helpful. But we can talk about why that might not be appropriate for women always in the moment. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it as well. But certainly eating, if you're not doing something like that and you're just doing a lesser fast, even with like 12, 14 hours, then give yourself mini fasts between meals, because I still quite often will see clients who come to me and they don't know why they're putting on weight, but they're almost grazing all day long, and their bodies don't have the opportunity to tap into their fat stores and actually burn fat preferentially as a fuel. And it doesn't matter whether you're eating, celery sticks and carrots. If you're still munching all day long, you're still constantly stimulating, and that is going to age you. I think that eating super nutrient dense food and making sure that you are giving your body enough nutrients to really support liver function and detoxification, as well as that alongside fasting. And I know you're a big fan of DNA testing as well. I think it's a really good way. You only need to do it once to just have a look and see, well, where are the little chinks in my armor that I might need to support at a very base level and optimize that epigenetic expression. I just find it's really enlightening for people, for them to understand that and understand, am I somebody who is naturally more prone to diabetes, to heart disease, to basically metabolizing those carbohydrates and extracting more calories more quickly because I have a very high carb sensitivity. Knowing that kind of information can really help you to personalize your diet and get the best results and really optimize your energy and your function as a human.
Yeah, I 100%. I think a lot of people just never did 23andMe or Ancestry DNA because they didn't want their information shared. And, they just like, I don't want to look at my relatives. I said, I don't care about that part. One, I like to look at what, the ancestry, where are you from? Like mine is Northern European, and what foods your ancestors ate. Take that information, but then download that raw genetic data you can get, and I can upload it in so many different programs, and I don't have to retest my genetics because they haven't changed. My epigenetics are going to change with our lifestyle behaviors, but getting that raw data and then putting it into DNA Fit, or what program did you say you like to use? No,
so I quite often use Circle DNA. And actually what I'll sort of do it the other way around, where clients will do Circle because it puts it in a really usable format, and they test more panels than 23andMe. So they actually test 31 million data points. So it's kind of full exome sequencing. And then if they want to pay later and get their raw data, they can, but it's delivered in such a user-friendly format in an app that they can actually start to understand, because the algorithm will take, their insulin sensitivity, their predisposition to diabetes, their carb sensitivity, their fat sensitivity, and actually say, this is probably the best style of diet for you. And these are this is where you need support on detoxification. So it's not dissimilar to DNA Fit. It just tests more panels, and it tests all like cancer genes, Alzheimer's. It also will give you information on if you do need medication later in your life, for example, whether you interact with medication differently to the next person. So whether you might need a lower or higher starting dose. And obviously, hopefully people don't need medication, but it's there really to understand them, or if they have sensitivity. So it's really kind of diving into it. It helps bridge that gap really between what we do and then personalized medicine as well. And because it's all in an app on the phone, they give you updates when they update their panels. You just have it there really easy to hand, and you can check it whenever you need to. And then if you want to ask them for the raw data, they will provide that. So you can then run it through other programs like Strategene or Rhonda Patrick's, for example.
Now, is that a UK company, or where is that out of?
So they, DNA Fit was obviously UK, and they merged with Prenetics, which was originally, I think, a Hong Kong company, and the two have come together. So yeah, I think they still offer the classic DNA Fit tests, which are a little bit more cost effective, but obviously get more information with Circle.
I'll have to look that up. Good to know. Yeah, I think, it's important to take all that data and, as we say, be a health investigator and collect clues to help put a individualized, comprehensive program for a client together, rather than everyone just kind of be stuck in that cycle of trial and error and try this, try that, because I heard of this biohack and I've heard of this, everyone's doing keto, everyone's doing carnivore, and they're just losing 50 pounds in a month. And, I think it's hard to really, the people that are struggling and they're not getting those results that someone else did, then I say, well, you really need to invest in your health and get that individualized approach by collecting all these clues that you're gathering, as I am. That lab testing is essential too. Do you do any labs as well as the genetic tests when you're working with people?
Yeah, I do quite commonly. So I have a program for people that starts with genetics. So it's a really good entry point for them. And then quite often when I'm working on a more one-to-one basis with clients, then we will look at organic acid testing, gut microbiome testing, which I often will use Genova. And then I also do Dutch testing as well. Because again, I find that's another area where, clients will find that they'll sort of go online and they'll be like, oh, do you think I should be taking DIM, or do you think I should be taking, like extra, like, do you think I need more testosterone? Do you think, and it's like, do you know what, let's not guess. Let's just actually find out what's going on, because it's so much better to be direct with this stuff and targeted than when you're not. So yeah, I like to, and where I think I actually have found such an increased demand in the pandemic for Dutch testing, because I think people at the end of this are just feeling so burnt out that they just, it's really common. And I think people are losing their libido. They're not, they just don't have the same drive. They're suffering with brain fog. They feel less motivated. And I think understanding where you are in terms of that hormonal cascade, and understanding, are you at the point where you're just overreaching at the moment? If we compare it to an athlete, when they're overreaching, they can recover, right? They can get it back. So it's kind of a sign. And if their HRV is dropping, we can say, right, you're overreaching. And yes, that can make you stronger and more resilient and perform better, provided you get adequate recovery. But if you go that one step further and you're now in overtraining and you get overtraining syndrome, that's a completely different ballgame. It's so much harder to come back. And, in the corporate world, we see that with burnout. And so I think by looking at people's tests, like the Dutch test, we can see, what stage are you at? Are you at the stage where your adrenals are basically showing that you're under a period of stress, but they're up to the job and they just keep pumping and providing this? Or have you gone over that now? And actually now what we're seeing is lowered levels of cortisol, lowered levels of DHEA, and the client is basically showing that they just don't have any drive left. That's going to take some work and some adrenal support to get them back on track.
That, I think, shows why we need to do other tests as well and look at the whole picture, because you could just address those external stressors that are, driving us, and when we're addicted to busyness on all the time, we don't know how to slow down and shut our minds off, and we're always in that sympathetic mode. But then these hidden internal stressors, that's why I really believe in doing not just a Dutch, but doing the GI test, as you said, and organic acids, look at your genetics, because if we just address the hormones, it doesn't explain the why to everything. Yes, because how we're living life, but what if those extra things, like I found out last summer doing the oats for my first time after 8 years of figuring out what's going on, that was mold toxicity. And that was a big, huge part of chronic fatigue and dismantling everything when you don't see that. So that's why I've advised clients, listeners to, get the 3 tests at least and just get this huge overview. Because I think organic acids test is so fascinating, but so is the GI test, because there's stuff that's not going to show up on either. So you have to take those 3 labs and really get the whole picture. It's so hard to do just one. So you find that yourself as well?
I do. And I think it kind of varies from client to client. So I think some people, and it depends on their budget, right? So some people are, okay, can we take it in stages? Like, can we start here? So then I'm not treating the symptoms, but I'm looking at where are the symptoms like strongly directing me the most, and let's look there and then see if we like what further testing we might do. Whereas if they have the budget to do it, then 100% every time it's very straightforward. It's let's do the oats, let's do the GI effects, and let's do the hormone test, because then we have a really good view. And I like to do the Dutch alongside the saliva, so we can see the cortisol awakening response, to really see what they are like when they get out of bed as well. So in an ideal world, and if their budget supports it, then I would always do the full suite of tests.
Yeah, for sure. I know most people don't have the ability to do that. So it's good to do in stages and kind of get those, kind of form your impression a little bit along gradually what's going on inside under the hood. So what are some lifestyle?
Sometimes they can't make all the changes at once as well. No. That's the thing, isn't it? I think they almost need time. Sorry, you were saying.
Well, not to interrupt, but what kind of going with that same thing is, what are some lifestyle behaviors? Because I would say, you can't out supplement poor lifestyle habits, can't out exercise a bad diet. So you need to really work on what I call the holistic method, but in your program, similar, that you're working on, really optimizing the health. But what we do each day, as we talk about sunlight and getting fresh air and nature walks, but what are some other things we can do to really optimize our health, to bring our hormones back into balance? And like with fasting in women, let's kind of dive into what things that we can do and what we shouldn't do.
Sure. So if we just finish fasting first then, because we were talking briefly on that, with women, I think it is about really understanding the effects on your body. So if you're feeling that you are irritable, that you're struggling, that you're feeling really, really tense, and you're still in your menstruating years, or your perimenopausal, then probably doing extended fasts, especially if you're someone who exercises a lot and you're getting that autophagy from the exercise sessions, and you're sleeping well, you maybe don't need to do as long a fast, and that can just put a further strain on the body that actually causes some hormonal imbalances. So it's about understanding what really works for you. And I think having independent metrics, like you were mentioning, the Aura ring, either the Aura or the Whoop strap, to actually see what's going on underlyingly, and then checking in with yourself about how you feel is really important. And so for some people, having something like bulletproof coffee in the morning is enough to help them extend that fast. I was actually chatting on my show to Dave Asprey about it on Friday, and just how that can be a useful mechanism for women who really want to extend their fast, but they feel like they need something. Bulletproof coffee can help, and just having that MCT oil with a bit of grass-fed butter. Obviously, the other thing I find with women is they'll often be inclined, particularly type A personalities, to just keep like layering on more and more, because in perimenopause in particular, they feel like they're gaining weight, or they've got weight loss resistance. So now they're like, I need to work out more. Then they start working out more in the morning, and that just elevates cortisol even more. And so just understanding that to actually rebalance things and lower that cortisol, which is naturally higher in perimenopause, we need to be fueling properly after a workout. So then breaking that fast and making sure you're having some protein and carbohydrates just says to the body that cortisol can be lowered now for up to 48 hours afterwards. So we don't get that catabolic effect, and we can really make the most of our workouts. In terms of like training the body and mind, obviously that's the last component for me in the shift model. It doesn't come last, it's just shift makes it easy to remember. What I find there is that you need to work on the mind as much as anything else, and the subconscious mind. And so just being grateful for where you are right now in your life is hugely powerful. So I always encourage people to practice gratitude and to write down 3 things that they're grateful for in the morning. And at the end of the day, to write down 3 things that went great today. And even if it was that you just enjoyed 5 minutes having a cup of coffee, that's still something that went great that you can write down. And then a really powerful question I find at the end of the day that people can answer is, what would have made today even better? And that is just a real moment for reflection, and really sets you up for the following day. I also like breathing techniques. I think they're a great way. You know, that's the only really known entry system to the parasympathetic nervous system where we can calm ourselves down very quickly. And it's that exhalation of breath that makes such a big impact. So we know that 4-7-8 breathing, for example, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and then slowly exhale for 8, helps to enhance GABA. So if you want to kind of produce GABA on demand and have that calming neurotransmitter, then 4-7-8 breathing can help. But if people are struggling to go from their high stress state to then just doing that 4-7-8, because there is quite a long breath hold, and you're really slowing the breath down, because if you think in that process, each breath is now taking you 15 to 20 seconds, that can be quite hard to go from maybe even upper chest breathing and all tense to going into that. So I usually say to people, start with the 2x breath where you breathe in for 2 and out for 4, repeat that a few times, and then move to the 3x breath, in for 3 and out for 6. And then you can move into that 4-7-8 breathing. So those are some of the things that I teach people. Box breathing is another one, just to really help them connect with themselves. And then meditation, I'm a huge fan of as well.
Mm-hmm. So just to go back to what you said earlier, is nutrition, and I can hear athletes asking this, so I'm going to ask this. What do they eat after workout? If you said to, working out in the morning, fasted workouts, adding in some carbohydrates and protein, talk a little more specifically about that, because I think people would love to know, like, oh, what should I, because people get confused on fueling for the low carb athlete. And what is too much stress on body, especially female athletes, when our hormones are already kind of dysregulated, premenopause, menopause, and then, exercising, if it's too much stress, if we don't eat or not eat, and then what to eat afterwards. What do you suggest?
So I would say that the first thing is, in terms of if we're looking at perimenopausal women, then the exercise sessions need to be reduced, and you need to create polarity. So you can build endurance by going low and slow. And I mean kind of embarrassingly slow. So like, even just brisk walking is really good, or gentle cycling in kind of a list mode. But I would then couple that with very, very intense periods, assuming you have medical sign-off from your doctor, of really high intense activity, of all-out sprints of like 20 seconds and no longer, with good recovery of, 4 times or even 8 times, however much you need to recovery to then really bring it again. And you could do that 3 to 6 times through. And if you can't really bring it by the 4th time, then cut it and stop after 3. Like, there's no shame in it, because each session you're going to build up and get faster and fitter. And then similarly with weight training, like let's lift heavy. Let's put some heavy weights in there, really stimulate that muscle protein synthesis, and bone density is so important. And then after that session, because we know that baseline inflammation is higher, we know that cortisol is higher in perimenopausal women, Then now it's really, really important that you do fuel. You've depleted muscle glycogen. And so at this point, you need to refuel, and the muscles will be ready to take it up and they're going to grow stronger. So protein and carbohydrates at this point, I think, is really important. Do not feel the carbs. Even for a low carb athlete, this is a really good point in your day to actually and enjoy some carbs, whether that's white rice, sweet potato, like just have some fun with it, banana, whatever it is, and have some protein so you've got those amino acids as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you like to eat after a workout? If you're making something, do you have any favorites?
So I quite often will work out immediately before a main meal. So commonly I will work out pre-lunch. And then I might have some fish with some salad and some sweet potato, or I might have some chicken or something like that. So I'm not somebody who generally refuels with a shake. If I'm on the go, then I will do, or I might have, some of the ketone aminos alongside like a banana or something if I'm really in a rush, like if I'm running to get my kids or something like that. But ideally, I would have a meal that contains some nice vegetables and things as well. After a workout, we don't want to be getting antioxidants from synthetic bases, because that, as you know, has been shown that it may sort of blunt the body's own natural antioxidant response. But antioxidants from food is actually fine in a food state form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people get confused by following, what is low carb athlete versus, people doing keto, low carb that are not exercising as much as most of us are, that you can have some carbohydrates. They're not all evil, that It's okay to have some real carbs, and you're not going to shift you out of fat burning into carb burning. I think people still be burning fat and be metabolically efficient, because they are metabolically flexible.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, is to be metabolically flexible. And to do that, you need to be able to switch between the two whenever you need to. And I think that's the goal, really. Kids are very metabolically flexible. So that's really where we want to live younger, right? That's where we want to get to.
Yeah, reverse the aging process. So what are some things that you're working on in your world the next year? Do you have any big goals and things that you're working on for yourself in your coaching business?
Yeah, so at the end of last year, I released my program, which is Live Younger Longer Blueprint. So that's based all around genetics. And what I'm now putting together is a membership site specifically for women who really want to be kind of the most eminent version of themselves, and create a kind of community of women who don't want to be, held back. They want to be able to enjoy their career, enjoy all their fitness pursuits, have time with family, and help them optimize their metabolism, their stress, and their hormones to enable them to do that. So that's something that I'm launching in May. So that's an exciting project.
Yeah, well, it's great to find your niche and who you like to work with and who you can identify with. So it's always a good thing to help those people, and especially women, as we're premenopausal. And I said, I'm turning 50 in November, that it's all, what can you do to...
It's exciting.
It's shocking, because for years I said I was 35. Now it's like, all right, now I'm really getting older, but it's really drives me to be the best version of myself, live my best life, my second half of life. Like I had, tons of years of athletic performance, racing all the time and events. And now it's like, all right, what can I do to get that process even better? And I think I'm trying to create that awareness to endurance athletes, because so many people that are triathletes, marathoners, listening, they're pushing themselves in life and in sport, that they're maybe not looking at what they're doing, how that's impacting their health for their future self, and how to work on creating yourself now for who you want to be 10, 20, 30 years from now, is identifying that person and seeing that person. And then let's start figuring out what tools that we can do and implement in our life now that will improve who you are, your future self.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I absolutely agree with you. And I think, understanding that what you do now between sort of 45 and 55 is what's going to set you up for the best health outcomes in that later life. And menopause should be a beautiful time in your life. It's a new beginning, and to make that transition with grace, and to enjoy it and really embrace that experience.
Yeah, should be easier, right? You wouldn't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So, ideally. So I'll put all the links in the show notes for your website and coaching and anything on social media. Where do people find you and follow you?
Yeah, so they can find me. I'm probably most active on Instagram, which is Angela S. Foster. So that's probably the platform that I spend the most time. I do have a Facebook group called Female Biohacker. If there are women that want to join, and I sort of host lives in there. So if they want a more kind of tight-knit community, and then if they want to just go and check out how DNA can affect their health and longevity, they can just access a free masterclass I have, and that's just bit.ly/longevity masterclass.
Longevity. Okay, I will try to remember put that in the notes. Super. Well, we thank you so much for sharing your insights on how we can be a better version of ourselves in our future life and what we can do now with these most free things, getting outside, getting fresh air, watching the sunrise, sunset, and getting more time on your bare feet, and all these different lifestyle biohacks that you don't need to buy anything for. So it's always good to hear that. So much many people will like hear all these things they have to buy. It's like, you know what's free? Getting outside.
The best things in life are free.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Angela. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.